Welcome to NobelBiz Webinars. Get ready for another session full of insightful information, tips, and knowledge shared by industry experts to help your contact center business grow.
Ooh, I would say from the frozen tundra, but I'm in North Carolina and my guest is out of Florida. This is Mike McGuire. I'm with NobelBiz and I'm excited today. Got amazing guest and friend, Joe Jacoboni here on the NobelBiz webinar series. And we got an important topic to talk about, Joe. We're going to be talking about workforce management in the hybrid workplace. I'll do a little introduction of what I know of you, and then I'll let you kind of introduce yourself a little bit. So, Joe, CEO of NexGen Technologies, with decades, I guess you would say, years of scaling hybrid remote. Not only that, the grandfather of contact centers. Known Joe for a long time. I appreciate all of his expertise when it comes to managing BPOs and evolving with the times. So, Joe, you want to do a real quick introduction for the audience and let them know who you are and why you're important to listen to on this topic.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike, and it's a pleasure being here today with you. As everybody knows, Mike McGuire is the man of contact centers, and you know, when the pandemic hit, you know, we were all caught really flat-footed, right? Because many corporations were not used to having remote employees, and obviously, when the pandemic hit, they were forced to go to remote or some type of a hybrid work environment. My background is I've been in the technology industry since 1980. In 1991, I really started the first BPO in the industry. I'm not the godfather of the call center business, but I am the godfather of BPOs. And sold that company in 95 to Cincinnati Bell, and we created Convergence, which most people know who they are. I've been involved in BPOs and over the last, like I said, 30 years. And, my last BPO that I had was NexGen Contract Solutions. And when the pandemic hit, I was starting NexGen Contract Solutions, and we were building a brick and mortar call center. And we were always going to have remote employees because hybrid work environments to a BPO is not a new thesis,
Right.
or a new way of doing business. But what happened was I got offered to build a virtual call center with a company called Walkabout Workplace, and I was like, okay, that's all right. I like remote employees, but I really like to keep my fingers on be able to communicate direct with an employee and be able to walk the call center. But I was convinced to at least try it. And then what happened was the pandemic hit, and then I was forced to be a virtual call center. Decided through several months to buy the company itself. I was so impressed with the technology that I decided to buy the technology and make it part of our company, NexGen Technologies. So we've been doing this now since 2022, and obviously one of the biggest issues that we've seen, Mike, is companies still don't have a good grasp on how to manage their work environments. And it doesn't matter what work environment, Mike, whether it's remote, whether it's hybrid, or really even if it's an enterprise work environment, because the enterprise work environments have the same problems that remote work environments have, or hybrid work environments. They don't know how to develop a community, how to develop to create a culture within the community, to be able to communicate effectively and quickly as they can on site, and most importantly, have instant collaboration. And those are the four issues that we see and I want to discuss today.
Sure.
One thing that we've been trying to do over the last several years is really develop what's the best practices for a company to manage an enterprise, remote, or hybrid work environment.
So let's talk about this a little bit. So we talked about why hybrid work exploded. So COVID hit and exploded. You kind of was in the BPO business. You found this technology. So why isn't hybrid? COVID's over. Why isn't it going away? Why doesn't everybody just come back?
Well, it's kind of interesting because when COVID hit, we forced everybody to go home, right? And we said, change your lifestyle, change the way you operate. You know, people got rid of babysitters. They got rid of their second car. They started curtailing their home environment to be in a home work environment.
Yep.
Then one day we said, oh, now you got to go back to work, which they're like, well, wait a minute, you know, that doesn't work. I mean, when COVID hit, I think 4.2 million people resigned from their job because of personal issues, right? Having either they didn't want to get sick, or they were sick, or they had to take care of somebody who was sick.
Right.
So the reason why it hasn't gone away is we've adapted our work environment and our work habits to being in a home work environment, or at least a hybrid work environment. And so to re-engineer that again is very difficult, right?
Yep. So I agree. I think, you know, the one hurdle was, how do we get the job done during COVID, right? And the great thing is humans adapt. That's what we do. And we adapted and we said, okay, we can still get the work done, right? But is it the most efficient? Is it the best environment? I think really what everybody was doing during COVID, myself, was how do we get the work done? How do we disseminate all these people and still be able to service our clients, be able to get, you know, the things that we needed to get accomplished? We did it. Wasn't good. I did it. It was struggle. Learning how to coach and develop people. And I was running a political call center at the time during an election cycle. So now it's an election cycle where it's our biggest time of the year, and I got to send 4 call centers full of people home to do this. It was a nightmare. Then I had to figure out how I was going to manage them and hire them and all that type of stuff. At the end of the day, we did it, but it wasn't efficient. And now what I'm hearing is people have adapted to this hybrid work environment, and you see it. People are recruiting for remote agents. They're recruiting for remote employees. They're hiring people back now that way. So now this is the new norm, is not everybody's going to come back. And you can't force them back because you still have to find the best and the brightest. And you're not going to do that if people have adapted their lifestyle to this work from home, hybrid work environment, so on and so forth. So
work-life balance, right? I mean,
Yep.
that's the new saying, right? Well, I want work-life balance, and working from home made it easier for them to have better work-life balance. And the misnomer is that people that work from home aren't as productive as people that work on site. That's not true. Actually, study after study has found people are more productive working from home than they working on site. But there's 2 issues you've got to resolve, Mike. First off, you got to figure out, can that job be done remotely, or can it be done hybrid, or does it have to be done on site? And there are certain jobs that have to be done on site.
Yep.
You can't do them remotely. The second thing you got to realize is the specific employee, what work environment do they work in best? Do they work best in a remote environment? Do they work best in a hybrid? Or do they work best on site? You know, there's 2 sides to the coin. There's the management view, and then there's the employee view. You know, management, and there was a study that came out right at the tail end of the pandemic in 2022 by Viopta, that they surveyed 200 companies and over 500 employees in management, and asked them what their thoughts were about remote work environments. Interestingly enough, the majority of the employees liked it, and because they had better flexibility, and I think that they have less management, right? They're able to have a little bit more freedom in the work environment. Management did not like it. As a matter of fact, 96% of the management said they didn't feel that the remote employees got the same visibility that the employees that were in-house, and they feel that they lost control of the work environment, and that's probably the biggest issue that management had. Right?
We hear these terms where they say virtual first management. So what I've heard is that you're going from a shift of the traditional supervisor to data driven, and I'm going to use the call center world. That's a lot of the audience, so on and so forth, is in a brick and mortar. I mean, you could control a lot of things within your call center. Performance was low, you could shut down shift, do a pump up, you could go pull everybody in a training room, you could switch agents, you could see agents when they walked in the door if they were feeling good, maybe not put them in certain campaigns. And so now we're in this hybrid environment, and we're talking about virtual first management. What does that mean to you, virtual first management?
Well, again, it's all about collaboration and communication. The problem in a virtual environment with many of the technologies that are out there, and I want to say this, Zoom and Teams and Meets and WebEx, they're all great video conferencing platforms. They're not great communication platforms. And that's part of the problem, is trying to get collaboration with somebody. So when you're talking about virtual first, you got to figure out, how do I get a team together? If I want to collaborate with 4 or 5 people, how do I get them together? How do I coordinate their schedules? How do I, in an office environment, you see somebody's in their office, you call them, hey, Mike, come to this conference room and we have this conference. In a virtual environment, that's difficult. Now with our platform, and this isn't a commercial for NexGen Virtual Office, but with our platform, we give you the ability to do that with a click of a button. But again, those are the biggest issues that I see.
So keeping people aligned, supported, connected, no matter where they work. It's kind of like the, when we talk about omni-channel, when omni-channel first came out and you had kind of the multi-channel, the whole idea was supporting the customer the same no matter the channel, right? So no matter what it is, if they call in on the phone versus sending in an SMS versus an email versus a web chat, you should still have the same level of service. And so what I'm hearing is in the hybrid work environment, the people should still have the same level of experience, no matter if you're working from home or if you're sitting in that call center in that cubicle. The management, everything should still feel connected and aligned.
Yeah, and it's really about community too, Mike, because we don't just go to work. We go to work to socialize, right? Many people, their best friends, there's a book, there's a Monster Under the Bed, that talked about, when people have friends they work with at work, they're more likely not to resign.
Yep.
If they don't have friends at work. Well, in a remote or a hybrid work environment, you're isolated. You're at home. The only people you see is your family that you see all day long anyway. So community is just as important as any other aspect about figuring out how to manage a remote or hybrid work environment.
So let's talk about KPIs, right? So obviously there's some KPIs that are going to be driven into having that hybrid first mentality. First thing that strikes me is turnover, right? Yep. You're in a BPO, I've been in BPOs, we've managed call centers forever, and the biggest cost drain on most call centers is turnover. So do you think this hybrid first, this environment of connecting and culture and aligning, would that be the biggest KPI that you think it impacts, is trying to, create this togetherness so your turnover drops? Because I know when I ran a hybrid work environment, my turnover probably doubled in that team compared to my brick and mortar agents.
Yeah. And the reason being is, Mike, is that, again, in a remote work environment, you're isolated. So, you don't, You can't just walk down the hall and have cooler talk with one of your fellow employees. So you have a problem, you have a tendency of saying, "No, I'm just going to quit." The only people that you really have exposure to typically are your supervisor, your manager, or maybe HR, and that's it, right? So again, community is so important that you understand that and coordinate with all your remote employees as well as your on-site employees to develop that community. One thing that we do as a company is on a monthly basis, I'll have digital lunch with all my direct reports, right? And I bring them into our virtual break room. I send them Uber gift certificates, and we have lunch. And the rule is no business. It's just socialize, right?
Yeah.
Get together. And so you have to figure out, if you're going to have a remote work environment, how do you bring those people back into the company? How do you get them to where they can communicate, to where they can socialize, where they can be a part of the culture of the company as well? And like I said, enterprise companies have the same issue, right? Because they have offices in different cities, different countries, different buildings, different floors. They have the same issue, but they've never really addressed the issue. But yeah, I agree with you on turnover. I think that, but I think if you do it right, and you have the right processes and community involved, that you can actually you have a better environment, a better work environment. I know with my company, we're 100% virtual. I'm in Boynton Beach. I have employees in Zimbabwe. I have employees in Belize. I have employees in New York. They're all over the world, which is a big advantage to me, that I can recruit the best people, right? I'm not limited to recruiting within a 20-25 mile radius of my office. But on the same token, they're all in different time zones. I've got to take that into effect when I'm trying to communicate with them or organizing meetings or any type of communication process. So
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I said you kind of rolled into the advantages. So what I hear is this. I hear either hybrid work environment is working for me because maybe I've done things like reached out to NexGen. I found I wanted to be a hybrid first environment. So in that case, I have tools and I have solutions that are going to benefit. I'm going to align all my agents and all my employees, and I'm going to create this environment. The ones that are like, we're bringing everybody back. And then you have the ones that are like struggling. They're like, we can't bring everybody back, but we notice that there's issues here in turnover and KPIs, so on and so forth. So let's take a minute and kind of talk about the real advantages and the competitive advantages of having that hybrid work environment, that hybrid workforce. You touched on a few of them. One of them is you're going to diversify your talent pool. So when I used to run call centers, I would go into these low income, high employment areas in West Virginia, Kentucky, Kansas, all over the Midwest. And I would open these call centers because unemployment was really high, right? But what ends up happening is you've been there for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and you start churning through the population because call centers have high turnover. And you start realizing if I want to call nationwide, I'm in this very small ecosystem where it's hard to call New Jersey. It's hard to call California. It's hard to really diversify. So one thing that I knew when I started creating a hybrid work environment is I can now hire everywhere. I can hire any state. I can hire any talent pool. And you know what that did to my cost? It brought it down.
Yeah.
Because now instead of saying, hey, I have a call center in New York because I have to open a call center in New York because of X, Y, and Z, which I had to pay X amount because of cost of living, I can go hire people with a neutral accent in Florida. Yep. And the unemployment rate in Florida is $7, and I can get good employees for $15. So, I see that in real practical call center world as I could diversify my talent pool. I could bring my employment costs down, and then I help my turnover, because now I can create an environment where I can match people's skill with what I'm asking them to do. So I can purposely recruit now, because my recruiting pool is 50 states. I can recruit people that want to do fundraising, that want to do sales, that want to do customer service. And I'm not having to put all these people in this box and say, nope, you're going to be a salesperson today. Let me train you how to do that. Anything else I missed on that, on some of the advantages of that hybrid work environment or remote?
Well, you brought up a great point of being able to recruit anywhere in the world, because especially in the call center business, it's multilingual, right? And especially if you're a worldwide contact center, you're facilitating accounts that have French, German, English, Spanish. So in a hybrid environment, you can hire native language employees in those countries, right? Provided you have the proper technology to manage it, Mike. That's the key to it all. Is you have to be able to monitor them and be able to communicate with them in real time. And again, there are several technologies out there, ours being one, that give you that ability to do that. But you hit on a key point about cost of business, right? In a work environment, in a physical work environment, you got a lot of expenses. You got rent, you got infrastructure, you have security, you have assets, you have insurance, things that you don't have in a remote work environment. But in a remote work environment, you have other issues, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to have high-speed internet access. They have to have a conducive work environment. They have to be disciplined, because they don't have somebody sitting over their shoulder anymore. One of the biggest issues that we've seen in a remote work environment, especially in the call center space, is agents working multiple jobs, right? And they only should be working one job. They're getting paid on an hourly basis, and they've got 2 or 3 call centers that they're working for. They have 2 or 3 systems up and running, so that they just go from system to system, and they're getting paid 2 and 3 times what they should be being paid, which is one of the management issues that you have. Okay,
Gotcha.
So that there are some pitfalls to trying to manage
If you don't have the right technology. So these are the things that I ran into. So coaching gaps were huge. So to coach remote agents was super hard when I had to send them home, right? It was like all I could do is have them sit on some type of Teams, whatever platform it is, and then I would come in, we would coach, but then that got monotonous. The other thing was scheduling. So I could be able to just switch people. I just, take this guy over here and this and move him over here, or, change him here. So scheduling became a lot more complex. Motivational challenges, seeing KPIs, running contests, like all that stuff you lose, the whiteboards and the bing bag toss and all that stuff, you're losing that motivational stuff when they go hybrid. And then the other thing would be, we touched on it a little bit, is the KPIs and the data, seeing that employee, seeing the KPIs, walking up, coaching them, so on and so forth. So how is technology, kind of closing the gaps on those 4 points that I think I ran into when I had to create and work with people in the hybrid environment?
Well, almost every CCaaS company has now incorporated a workforce management in their platform, right?
Yeah.
And for that reason alone, is that, with workforce management, you can deal with the scheduling issues.
Yeah.
You can see who's absent. And again, there's several technologies out there, ours being one of, that give you the ability to see real-time KPIs of the agent to make sure that they are in compliance with the contract that the BPO has, right?
Yep.
Because most SOWs financially penalize you if you're not meeting the KPIs that you've agreed to.
Right.
So that's one area that you have. Again, being able to see your call center physically on the screen is important, right? To be, or really, it doesn't matter whether it's a call center or whether it's an office.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're 100% virtual, and we're on NexGen virtual office technology. I can see my corporate office on my screen all day long, and I can see who's meeting with who's available, who's not available. What we did with the issue of people working multiple jobs is we have now what we call a missing in action report. And if you're not on your PC for more than 5 minutes, it starts tracking your time. So if there's not a video on, or you're not moving your mouse or keyboard, it starts tracking you. Well, from a management standpoint, I can go in and look at their activity report and say, okay, well, wait a minute, you were missing in action. You were online for 8 hours, but you're missing in action for 2 hours of the 8. Where were you? What were you doing? Right? So again, reporting is key. It's vital because, as you mentioned, Mike, when you're on site, it's a little bit easier to be able to manage somebody physically than it is when you're remote. And again, the environments are totally different. So you may be in a different environment in a different time zone. One of the issues that we face is we have programmers that are in Belize and they're in Colombia. Well, in Belize, the time difference is different, and we have people that are working for us from Zimbabwe, and
right.
That's like 13 hours, 10 hour different time difference than it is in internal. So,
but they're all on the same platform. They're all right there.
Right. Well, I mean, you look at what's happened to dialers over the last 10 years, Mike. You brought it up. Omni-channel has become a norm. It's no longer an exception.
Right.
And it's the customer experience that really matters. It doesn't matter about, how you want to support that person. It's what channel do they want to be supported on. So that has matured and morphed into a very comprehensive technology. Well, again, virtual office is morphing into a different reality as well. That's why we say we're not a video conferencing technology, we're a communication technology. And I really believe that's what you have to have is a virtual communication technology that ties all of these issues into one package, into one bundle. And again, the manager understanding what is the best practices to manage my type of call center or my type of company. Because it's all different, right? A BPO has different motivations and different aspects that they need to manage versus a manufacturer or a sales organization or a marketing organization. They all have different priorities and different types of work environments that they got to manage and issues that they've got to deal with.
I'll tell you one thing that when I looked at the NexGen platform, the one thing out of everything that it does is that visual aspect of me being able to see all my people, all on phone calls, all on whatever. Because if you've ever ran a call center and you go out on the call center floor, especially any type of outbound call center, and you hear that hum, you hear everybody talking, you see your dashboard all lit up with calls, you knew it was going to be a productive day. Yep. You felt it. You could make changes. And then when that dipped, when you're seeing all your agents now not on calls and the dialers slowed down and X, Y, and Z, you had to make changes because if you didn't, then you lost the day. And so one thing when we talk about like visually seeing remote agents or hybrid agents, that's a piece that's so important because it's so important of the day-to-day of running and inspecting your team. Call center, supervisors, whatever. It's that visual management of you saying, hey, they're all productive, they're all getting calls, they're all crushing it. Oh, let me go help Johnny. Let me jump into their office real quick, have this quick one-on-one. That's your tapping somebody on the shoulder when they're on the floor saying, hey, let me help you out. You seem like you're struggling a little bit. And that's what you've kind of created in NexGen, and that's why I think out of everything, that's the most valuable piece to me in the contact center world that brings, I think, that togetherness from a supervisor. From an agent level, it's different, but from a supervisor level, it allows me to orchestrate. And I struggled with that before when I had to send people home.
And it's not only just monitoring the KPIs, it's monitoring whether an agent is compliant with the KPIs. And we just recently released our first CCAS technology where we integrated NobelBiz into our platform. And so with our platform in a call center, in real time, the supervisor can see whether an agent is compliant with their KPIs or not. Now that's interesting to be able to see whether or not you're in compliance and whether you have issues with different agents. But what's more important, Mike, is when that supervisor can see somebody's not in compliance, they can go right to their workstation, click on it, instantaneously video conference with them, and start coaching them. That's what's important, right?
That's the tap on the shoulder. That's the, hey, click off. Let me talk to you.
Exactly, and making sure that agent's being taken care of or understanding what they're not doing right immediately. And immediate supervision and coaching to me is vital, especially in a call center environment. Because to wait till the end of the day to run a report and then the next day sit down with the agent and say, hey, your average handle time was over, your speed to answer was slow, or your first call resolution was down. They're looking at it like, well, that was yesterday, right? Okay, yeah, I may have had a problem or whatever, but I don't care. So it's instantaneous, I guess, gratification from the supervisor standpoint, and it just makes them that just more efficient. Like I said, for me, I have better management than I've ever had with my direct reports as a CEO.
The other thing that I used to tell people is they were, when we talked about how are the agents and the supervisors doing at home, one thing that I did notice when I sent agents at home is supervisors monitored more phone calls. They listened to more calls. They did actually more coaching because there was the less distraction of walking the floor, so on and so forth. So what I'm excited about is marrying the two. Is how do I still get the collaboration, the connectivity, the coaching, the ability to run your games and your raffles and all those things that we love about brick and mortar. But now I also get the upside of they can monitor more calls. They can make more decisions on real-time areas of coaching. And ultimately, you're also giving now the agent the flexibility to work from home. You're giving them the flexibility to not have to do a 1-hour commute every day. So in my mind, it could be a win-win if you have the right tools and you have the right management flexibility, I guess you would say, in adopting these tools. Because if we don't adopt them, nothing else matters. If we treat this group of people different than this group of people, and we expect these people to hit the same metrics as these people, I just think it's you're moving the goalpost. So,
I'm sorry. From an employee standpoint, they become more part of the community also when you give them that visibility. Because again, with NexGen, any employee can communicate with any employee. So you may be in a queue and you may see somebody that's in your queue. You can just go to their workstation if they're available and say, hey, my name's Joe. What's your name? Oh, I'm from Detroit. Oh, you're from Philadelphia. Oh, great. What's it like? And you get, you start that socialization and you can go and have digital coffee together or digital lunch together. So it's really, you got to have that capability. And let me tell you, Teams is a great technology. I mean, Microsoft has really taken Skype and changed it into a great technology. The problem with it is it's not a workplace. It's a video conferencing technology. So either you can cobble together different technologies to give you the tool set you need, and there are a lot of tools out there, right? Especially with AI now in the industry that's changing a whole lot of things. But what you got to do with your remote agents, you got to make them feel that they're as much a part of the culture as anybody else is. So you got to give them the ability to communicate with their supervisor, with their HR manager, with the call center manager, with the trainer, with all the people that they typically would have in an office environment. And you want to give that remote agent the visibility that somebody that would have on-site would have. Because an on-site employee is going to walk down the hall and bump into the CEO, right? And be, oh, hi, my name is Joe. I really love working in your company. I'd like to tell you a couple of things, some ideas that I have. And you get that, that interaction immediately. Well, again, make sure whatever platform you're on, that you have that capability and ability. We're one of the few platforms that we think we have encompassed all of the community and communication issues and really give companies an advantage. And like you said, the key advantage is more profitability to the bottom line.
Yeah,
That's what we're all working for, right?
I think you nailed it. I think the biggest thing is this face-to-face communication. I think hybrid work environments are so heavily reliant on email, so heavily reliant on instant messaging back and forth, so heavily reliant on non-face-to-face communication. So, when I do any type of management, I do any type of meetings, a couple things that I call my best practices. Number one, cameras need to be on.
Yep.
Okay, to do all this without a camera on defeats the purpose. Why? Because I'm reading you. I'm reading your body language. I'm trying to see if you're happy, if you're sad, how you're taking my information. You're reading me. You're trying to figure out what should I say next? How should I go into this? So this right alone helps with us managing each other in this world of hybrid. So number one, the camera's got to be on. If it isn't, none of this matters. Number two, like you laid out, you got to have the flexibility where I can communicate with anybody within the company at any time. Yep. So yes, I should be working during this time, but if I have a 10-minute break, what am I going to do? Go to my refrigerator, go da-da-da, and I should be able to click on my supervisor, should be able to click on the guy down the road, to have that open dialogue visually, on camera. And now we can create a bond, same thing with disciplinary. I promise you, if I'm coaching somebody and their camera's off, I know they're sitting there going, yeah, right, dude. Yeah, right. They're not listening. They've done checked out. So, those are some of the best practices that I think are important is you got to have the camera on and every single team member has to buy in and be involved in it. But the other best practice I think is important, you laid it out. Management needs to facilitate it. Yep. They need to say, let's have a lunch and learn. They need to have times to have a meet and greet. They need to facilitate, hey, let's all do a company meeting every Friday on our platform. I have an open door policy. Come knock on my door in the platform. And so that's where I see some people falling short when it comes to just using Teams and Zoom and some of these other platforms. Is it's only for formal communication. Yeah. Meaning, me and you are going to have a meeting, I send you a link. Or you send me a link because I'm in trouble. So this is kind of a way to informal communicate.
Yeah, and it goes right down to your work habits as well, Mike. Because when you're working at home, you got to be disciplined as well, okay? You need to take breaks. You need to go on like you would if you were in your cubicle or in your office. You take breaks, right? You go and take a 15-minute walk, or you go and you take a break to have a cup of coffee, and you need to do that. But you need to consciously, because you're at home. Sometimes it goes past you, right? And you're working, you're involved in it, you don't think about it.
This is the biggest scam companies did is when they gave everybody a cell phone, they basically got an extra, what would you say, 20 free hours a week from employees.
Yep. But you gotta have your own discipline as an employee to say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna lock my office. So in our platform, you either are available and you can see you got a green ring around your avatar, or you've locked your office and you got a red ring around your avatar. Well, if you have a red ring, I can come to your office. You'll know that I want to meet with you, but you can't get in. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I may be on a call, on an important call. I don't want to be interrupted on. I may be reading a contract. I may be developing a plan, and I want to have some privacy, and I don't want to have anybody communicate with me. But at the same time, I want to know if somebody wants to communicate with me. It goes back to the book, The 1 Minute Manager, right, Mike? And I'm a 1 minute manager. I always have been. I'd rather go and get something off my plate immediately and resolve it rather than gunny sack it and have a weekly meeting and dump it on your desk. And again, I think that's important, that managers understand that and that the employees understand that. And it's funny that you bring up about the camera, because again, in this Biopta survey, they talked about managers really disliked remote employees because they wouldn't turn on their camera. And like 46% of them wouldn't turn on their cameras. And so again, in our platform, and this is a policy, depending on the administrator, if you're an employee that won't keep their camera on, they can force you to keep your camera on with the platform. So right. When you're on the platform, you just can't turn off your camera.
Well, that's where I think companies have to facilitate the environment. Yep. If I'm bringing on hybrid agents, I'm bringing on a remote workforce, then I need some rules of engagement. I need to know, okay, camera's got to be on during this period of time. Your office has got to be unlocked during this period of time. These are when we have our virtual breaks. This is when we get together. This is da-da-da. This is how we coach. And so that way, I think that brings some of that culture together. This isn't just a one-off. This isn't just my way that I can micromanage you to, where I feel better about myself. This is really an environment that I'm saying as a company we're building, and this is how we facilitate it and get everybody involved in it. And it's not a one-off thing or a one-off team. And that's where I see people that stumble, is they may have 3 or 4 remote agents, or they may have 10 remote employees, and then they have 20 on site. So they treat everybody here one way, and then these guys are kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? You don't see them, so you email them, and then you're like, damn, I didn't even know they were employed. And so I think that's where technology can come in with discipline of management and create this environment.
I agree, because, Mike, we read all these management books. We're so cognizant of how to manage people in a work environment, right? How to set objectives, how to set the rules and compliance within the company. And we're used to that. That's the work environment that we've had for eons. Now, it's interesting to me. I ask people in a remote environment, what kind of processes, what kind of rules, what type of environment have you created for your remote environment? And they're like, well, if they need to talk to me, they can video conference.
Right.
Well, that's not a work. That's not creating a work environment. That's not managing efficiently and effectively. And so our mentality needs to get outside the box. And it's funny, because this has now been going on for 4 years, right? This isn't something that's new, but for 4 years, companies are still really struggling. I mean, we have companies, some very large companies, that have come to us recently and say, yeah, we still have those same problems. They have 100,000 employees, and they're like, yeah, we still have that. We have a company right now that we're about to bring on board with 108,000 employees. And they were like, yeah. I mean, we were at that trade show in Austin a couple weeks ago together, and one of the largest travel companies, I won't mention their name,
Yep.
they came and saw the platform, and she was like, oh my God, this is what we've been missing forever, right? And she goes, we're not communicating effectively. We're not, our people don't feel like they're part of the company. And they're an online travel agency, so all of their people are remote. You would think that they would have figured it out by now, right? But they haven't. And so that's why it's so important. And we're actually putting together a program, a best practices program. And what we realized, we've been doing that for the last year. And what we realized last week was, we got to create a platform of best practices for different environments, right? For different types of companies. Like I said, BPOs have a different best practices than a marketing company would.
Yeah, I think there's overlap, though. I think you're going to have like this.
Absolutely.
A lot of the stuff we brought up today, right? So I think what's important to summarize, and I know we're running up on the time, but what I want to summarize is two things. The alarm has been sounded. The alarm is you have to effectively find a way to manage your remote and hybrid teams. That alarm is going off right now. We're making it aware right now with the webinar that you have to do a better job of this. It's not working. You've laid out the different studies that say, hey, agents love and people love working from home. Supervisors and management hate it. We need to close that gap because it's not going to work with one group saying I love it and one group saying I hate it.
Exactly.
That's where technology can come in and your best practices that says, here's some simple solutions with technology and best practices that will get you going. Now, you're going to have to adapt it, make it your own. You're going to have to be able to put your own personality in it, but let us help you get it going. The other big alarm is it's not going away.
No.
People are not going to just say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to go do another hour commute. Or, hey, I'm going to go buy that second car again. Or, hey, they're just going to say, I'm going to find somebody that will hire me in a remote environment.
Yep.
And so those are two big pieces that I wanted to get out of this webinar to the organization is the alarm sounded. You got to fix it.
And you can't just say, and I know President Trump told all the federal employees, you got to come back to work. That's not an effective way to manage your work environment. You've got to look at the employee and see what's best for the employee as well. Because, we're all about this DEI now, and we're all about, this is a work, we want to build a work environment that everybody's engaged in and everybody feels that they're a part of. Well, this is part of it, right? And just to say, come back to the office.
Well, remember, there's a difference. There's a difference. Number one, if you're running a real business, not the government, you have to balance talent with performance.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you want to retain people and you want to perform at your highest capacity for your shareholders, then you got to keep that in mind. And you can't just say, everybody come back. Like it's just an environment, especially in a call center. People that's never ran a call center don't understand how competitive it is right now for good employees in the United States. Super competitive. So if one area that I can do, and I just did a talk in Austin on this about managing the new generation of people, if the one area I can do to get the best talent and I don't have to compete on price is being flexible and creating a work-life balance where they can work from home, but I still get the performance and a happy employee, sign me up. Sign me up.
Yeah, nothing fits in a box anymore.
Right.
You gotta, like I said, you've got to dissect. Number one, what's the job? Where's the best environment for that job to be? And then number two, what's best for the employee? What I think is so unfair with these companies like Tesla, like Chase, like the government saying, no, everybody's got to come back to work. I think it's really unfair to the worker because we 4 years ago, we said everybody's got to go home. You got to change everything in your life because you can't come to work anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I think we got to be sensitive to what's good for the employee as well. What's great for the company, which I believe multiple work environments is an advantage to any company. I don't care who you are or what you are. I think there's always going to be certain workers and certain features or work environments that are better from the home than it is in the office.
Well, we laid it out. We laid it out earlier. You don't. Before, I had to move to that city. I had to move to that state. I had to open a call center, and I had to find that talent. Now I can do that anywhere in the world. 2, I had to only hire based off of those skill sets that were available to me at the time. I can hire anywhere in the world now. I need a developer, hire them in Belize. I need somebody here, hire them in there. And guess what? Now I can find the best talent for my dollar. The best talent possible for my dollar. I'm not constricted to this. Happier employees equal better clients. Your clients love happy employees. They will service their clients better. These are all key attributes. Now, the last missing piece is you need the best practices and you need the technology to help marry these two. That's where you come in. Let everybody know how they can get a hold of NexGen, how they can get a demo of your product. If they're interested or they currently have a remote hybrid environment, how they can say, hey, let me check out what you have to offer.
Well, they can either go to nextgenvirtualoffice.com and they get a hold of us that way, or they can go to nextgentechnologies.net. And either way, they can reach us. Or they can call our corporate office at 561-270-0227. So, but we're readily available. One last point I want to make, Mike, about NobelBiz being innovators in the market, because you guys are first to market with our CCAS product. And I really think that your customers are going to realize how innovative this really is to be able to monitor these agents in real time and have, like I said, develop a community and a culture and a positive work environment, right? Like you said, happy employees, especially happy agents, that smile comes across the phone or across the video conference. I mean, in video conferencing, obviously you're face to face. So
it's funny because the world of AI, you know, it's on everybody's top of mind. It really gets back to people. And that's what we've been talking about for the past 45 minutes is people. And I think at the end of the day, you got to find a way to manage your people, make your people happy, make them feel like they belong, a part of the organization. You'll keep them longer. Keeping them longer equals more performance. Keeping them longer equals less cost. I think it's just a win.
Yeah, and in a call center environment, it used to always it cracked me up that people wanted to come and visit the call center. I'm like, what are you visiting the call center for? All it is a bunch of workstations and computers and people sitting in computers. What you really want to know is who's the management behind it?
How are we managing these people? Yeah.
How are we managing these people, and who are the agents, and where are they coming from, and are they the most proficient, educated agents that you can hire? And again, you know, one of the biggest issues, like I said, I've been in the industry since 1991. You know, one of the biggest issues we've always had is we burn out workforces, right? We only have so much workforce within the area of the call center. So you're forced to go to another city. You're forced to go to another area, which again, the cost starts becoming exponential, right?
Well, Joe, I have never seen you show anybody your product and they said, eh. So I think it's now just important to get the word out, let people know that there's tech that can help them with this remote hybrid or even just a large amount of employees in your organization. What do you call it? The 3 C's? What is it again? Or 4 C's?
Right. Well, it's collaboration, communication, culture, and community.
There you go. 4 C's. Remember the 4 C's and give NexGen a look. I hope you got a lot out of this webinar. I think it's an important topic. We're sounding the alarm. and reach out to Joe and his team. They're amazing people. And obviously, you know me, Mike McGuire at NobelBiz. We're here to help anytime we can. Anyway.
And as I said, NobelBiz is the first company that's coming out with our CCAS platform. Believe me, it's gonna re-engineer and re-innovate the entire contact center business. So and I give Mike McGuire and Steve Betterman a lot of credit for wanting to do this and be first to market. So check it out.
I'm glad I got you on the webinar. I know it's been a long time coming, and I appreciate you, my friend. And until next time, we'll do these again. I'd love to maybe do we'll get a customer on next time, kind of talk about how they manage their environment. And I think that will allow the audience to find some solutions for some of their problems out there.
So I'm available anytime for you, Mike.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
All right. You too. Take care.